evening.
Good evening.
Welcome to our establishment, our busy one this past year as usual. Although I think this year has been a little bit more than other years. And now we're going to just go over a few of the highlights of it. In January, our Remembering Volunteer was Tiz Evans. If you remember, if you've seen the program, she is the seamstress, but her father had a garage here in town for years, Harold's Garage.
Tetrol.
Yep.
Tetrol.
In February, we had Ruth Charles from the Canton Woods, and she explained about all the procedures and programs they have down there, which are a lot. That's a very busy place too. And then in March, with the Remembering Bonzo, we had Stephen Sennett. He's a land surveyor down here near the locks. And then in May, we had Marge and Kathleen Kingslow. And if you remember also with them, they were both teachers, although the daughter was with the Peace Corps for a while. And then we went to the last one we had so far this year was Edwin Baker. He was our photographer, portrait. He has since retired, it's like all of us do. No, you're still on the move. And then in March, we did the Ballsville Business Show with the Chamber of Commerce at Budweiser Brewery. In April, we had Jean Sapiro with the Birds of Prey rehabbing. And I didn't see that, but they said everything was really nice with that one. And then in May, we went to our truck sale. Evelyn remembers that well. And it's something for a lot of people do look forward to them. We're not the only ones that had one, but a lot of people do. And I think ours are nice. I think we were one of the first ones around, actually, that started it here. And also, that same month, we had the special book sale. That used to be connected with our big sale. But Sue and other people that really know about books have decided it's better to sort through and have some special ones inside here. And people that know what they're looking for, it's a designated place for them to come to look. And then in June, we had the Peony Fest, and the Garden Clubs celebrated their 60th anniversary as a member. And they had a display here in town, they had a tent set up. It was quite a nice thing. And of course, they've always worked well with our Peony Fest and things too. And then the other highlights we had were Kathy Loffredo, and I probably pronounced her name wrong. She was the rug hooking person that did the display here. We've had a variety of shows and things to interest people, at least we're hoping this is what it's for. And then Mary Ann Miles did a presentation about photo restoration. Mary Ann's been around the village for quite a while now, famous for her pictures and other things that she can do. And then we had a new lift, became very operable, thanks to Ed, pushing for it. And the front deck was removed, and the gardens were refreshed, including removal of our 30-year-old dogwood tree. How many people noticed that was gone? I didn't either do this the other day. All of a sudden it looked blank, and I realized it was still stuck there. But it was deteriorating quite quickly, and it was decided it was best to come down. But it does look really open there, but it's going to make room for all the new gardens that they want to work on with the peonies. And then, of course, September, we had the book sale. Now, all of you know about the book sale. The work that goes into it is unbelievable. All year round, it really is. They move books out of here today. So we'll be ready come September again. And then our upcoming calendar. We're going to have Bee Man here. He talks about bees. Pastor George. Now you know him too quite well because he was associated with Syracuse Home for quite a while.
He still does, yeah.
And I saw one of his presentations and it was very interesting. Joyce, you have too, right? It was very good. Mm-hmm. That's going to be this Friday. And our next Remembering Bondsville is going to be Ruth Cyril. She's a trustee on the village board. I've had most of the trustees here to do their talks about what they remember about Bonsall. And she was the last woman, I guess, I've been trying to get to come. And then this coming November, the 15th, we have the chocolate event. That's where different people can go around to all the different shops, and each one will have their own special chocolate affair. And at this point, unless somebody else has got something they'd like to add to our busy schedule, I think we'll have the secretary's report. Please, Bonnie.
Yes. Secretary's report for the annual meeting on November 16th, 2017. The meeting was held at the Museum of the Shagsboro Schoolhouse and was opened at 7 p.m. by Vice President Teresa Gross. Teresa announced that President Mary Hardigan had moved out of state last month to be closer to family. Teresa reviewed some of the organization's many activities of the preceding year, from Cody Nash's Eagle Scout project to our 27th annual book sale. Meg Van Patten presented the nominating committee's report for directors for the coming year. Nominees for 3-year terms beginning January 1st, 2018 were Teresa Gross, Ed McManus, and Bonnie Kisselstein. There being no nominations from the floor, a motion was made by Evelyn Dysinger and seconded by Joyce Munson that the slate be approved as presented. Motion passed unanimously. Restoration Committee members from the First United Methodist Church presented a program on the history and recent restoration of the huge rose window that is over the church's front entrance. The many steps from research to cleaning to reassembling the individual panes of colored glass were described. Brochures and photos illustrated the detailed process. Presenters were Jean and Wes Prey and Bonnie Kisselstein. Ed McManus then took the floor to announce the honoree of this year's Burl E. Wells Jr. Award. The restoration of the historic rose window was cited as a significant contribution to the preservation of historic Baldwinsville. The award went to the First United Methodist Church and was accepted on behalf of the church by the evening's program presenters. The meeting concluded with a wine and cheese reception and much conversation. Respectfully submitted, Connie Taft, Secretary.
Thank you. Corrections, additions? Then we'll ask for call a vote for approval of the minutes.
I move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. It passed. Did a good job. Thank you. And the nominating committee report, Meg, please.
Okay. So I'd like to move that the following people be re-elected to 3-year terms on the board of McCary's Legacy: Evelyn Dysinger, Connie Taft, Joyce Swenson. And that Steve McMahon be elected to fill the remaining 2 years of the term currently held by retiring board member Jean Dysinger. Would also like to move that Jean Dysinger, for all of your years of service on the board, be appointed as an honorary member of the board.
And Meg, you would cast one vote for the nomination, please.
And to cast one vote for the nominated slate.
All in favor?
Get a second.
Uh-huh.
Thank you very much.
Did you second, Bonnie?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And now for our evening program. And Joe does know the inside of this building quite well. And the outside, along with Norma. Did a lot of videoing out there and inside here too. So we're honored to have the two of them here this evening to help us along and tell about the PAC-B and other things that they do. Thank you both very much.
Well, Joe calls me up and asks if I wouldn't come down and do the previous history we know what Joe did, but the previous history to PAC-B, and it's long. It actually starts in 1993, and the entity that we were working with at the time was Time Warner. So Don was recovering from some surgery, so he was going to all these municipal meetings. And so he was asked to form a committee to find out if it was feasible for us to have public access in our community. So the first paper I had that I could find the dates was February 15th, 1999, and it was a certificate of incorporation that Don had to go to Albany to explain our mission statement, and then they would give us this certificate of incorporation to protect the people who worked with PAC-B. So in the meantime, Don had to, and this was needed to be an all-community endeavor. So he had to go to all the boards in the town of Lysander, the village of Baldwinsville, and the town of Van Buren. And he had to talk those people into helping with this commission to see if it was feasible and if they could. And if they wouldn't gather together as a group and form one commission, and that would be the Baldwinsville Public Access, Inc., so that they could go together. So this was an entity of the town of Lysander, the village board, and the town of Van Buren. And what they had to do was to designate PAC-B to operate the public access channel that time Warner was offering us. So we had a lot of help from Tom Isabella, who was senior municipal consultant from the state. So he came down and he worked with us all the time because we didn't know what we were doing. It was all very new to them. So they worked there until, as a group, till 1999. So then they formed this committee, and they went all over. They visited Cortland, Oswego, and all those areas where at that time there were public access things going on. And so that also when he went to the certificate of incorporation, it was for they designated that it was non-profit so that we could collect monies. And so they kept doing that, and here it was, well, from 93 to 99 before they got this all together. So they were all working and doing a lot of things, and just talking to about everybody around the state. They were all very helpful, and so they went from there to the Baldwinsville PAC, Inc. So at the time, we didn't have any money, and I didn't know about it, but I guess Don when they went for the certificate of incorporation, my husband loaned PAC-B $300, so they could do it. He did get it done. And also Bob Stockdale loaned money too, because there's a lot of fees that we had to take care of, and there was no money. So then they went and they did a drive. We wrote letters into all the various organizations, and we did okay, and everybody was paid back after that. So, and then for the funding for public access, it took the three entities, the governmental entities, and they all pitched in. So, and it all included how many viewers you had like in the town of Van Buren, and so it was all a little different. So, so we did for many years just use that, and it was always under $16,000, so that we didn't have to sign, you know, with the tax. That was another thing. You had to do everything, and they'd come around and look at your books. We did have some fortunate coincidences as we were working on all of this. And the Baldwinsville Library was opened maybe a year before we started Incorporated. And they were very nice, and they offered us a corner down in the basement for our studio and our method of operations. So that was very good. And also, the other coincidence was Bob Edgett retired and working for the library. And so he was assisting Don with the knowledge, his knowledge of computers and cameras, which was really great and helped them, especially when they needed, we were getting a little money, and they started buying cameras, because most of the time, and by the way, this was all analog, there's no digital yet, that didn't come in till several years later. But he helped a great deal, and then after a while he just kept coming in, and so here he is still still
coming in.
still doing what hopefully he loves to do it. So with the library then, of course, we got that corner, and so Don started to, we had a lot of junk in our, actually the Maple Road home. And so he went and he cleaned out all the things and set up tables for the cameras. That first year, we did not, we only operated 2 to 3 times a week. And it was Joe's fault that when he got on working with us, that he thought we got. Remember that? Yeah. And so also, then of course, Maple Road was probably the brainstorm and the local place. So my dining room for about 4 years was filled with all kinds of equipment and papers and all kinds of stuff like that. So finally, when they fixed up the studio down in the library, then they moved that stuff out, and I got my dining room back. So that, but it was mainly Maple Road was kind of the business headquarters until we got going. And so that was it. And then when Joe called me, I said, gee, I wonder when he started working. So I looked at the Baldwinsville Public Access Incorporated, the year January 24th, 2000. And we welcomed new videographer volunteers, Doug Dunlap, Joe Loffredo, and Steve Dwyer. And so the other 2 fell by the wayside, as many of them did, and Joe Loffredo kept going on all the time. So that's pretty much, I could show you all of the papers about the formation of PAC-B, but I don't think you want to hear that. So, did you?
I was just to mention in terms of the equipment, first of all, it's an agreement, and it's when cable access came into being, the federal government set certain laws and rules, and part of it was that the municipalities designated the entity, and they designated PAC-B, and Time Warner tried to, oh, you can broadcast, from like midnight to 3 a.m. And it's like, no. And this gentleman she mentioned in Albany said, no, you're the entity. And also they were supposed to give us $10,000 in equipment, and they were going to give us a bunch of used stuff. And Norma's husband Don, every time there was something like that, he would just go back to the guy in Albany and he'd be like, no. And so they had to give us $10,000 in brand new equipment. It really,
Yes, and
the
they
thing in Albany
wanted us,
helped.
when we first started up, we would have to run our videos over to East Syracuse where their office was, and until we got the room downstairs, and then we got a PAC-B going, and so that was really very nice. But we did have a lot of trouble with Time Warner. They really didn't want us on. And so I wasn't going to mention that, but
Well, just to show you what they did, it was like David and Goliath, because we started out on, let's say, I'm going to make this up because I'm not sure, on channel 12. Well, then they wanted channel 12, so they moved us to 14. Well, then they wanted 14, then we were on 10. And then they wanted 10 because that's News 10, right? That's their channel. So then, but that was easy for the public to find us because there were only like 24 channels at that time at cable. So then finally they moved us to 98. Now there are 400 channels, and who knows if anybody can find us other than if they actually know where we're located. And FiOS is even a little harder. We're on 30 on FiOS, and when you click through, some people, Bob has said this, that it doesn't necessarily pop up unless you program your computer or your gadget there. And these are big outfits that don't want to be bothered with the troublesome of the little guy in every town. In fact, there's only 3 access channels in the area: Oswego, Oneida, and Baldwinsville. So we're one of 3. And I think Joey Saraceni said it or something, that when they go to the meetings of supervisors of towns, Joe Saraceni always brings up the fact that, yeah, we're on TV. You're on TV? How does that happen? Yeah, only in Baldwinsville or Oswego or Oneida. You get to watch.
But the Time Warner at the time, they had to offer us?
Yes.
They had to offer us.
It was all when,
It's an FCC
all the stuff
rule.
in the beginning when cable first came into being. It's just like they also have to give a free drop to libraries, government institutions, and schools.
But they had to offer it, but we figured out that we could accept this and make this happen.
Mm-hmm.
But another town,
Doesn't.
they just didn't want to bother with it maybe?
Maybe, I don't know.
no, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
We put in a lot of time and stuff. But like I say, it was fortunate John had the time and he could do it. He liked organizations. And so, but that's all that channel numbers, that was channel slamming. So then when we kept complaining and complaining, and finally when they got channel 10, or they stopped it and we got channel 98, and that's how that ended up. So FiOS didn't come in till when we were redoing the contract and everything, and so they weren't even in the picture at the time. So it's up to you now, Joe. You can take it over.
As all you people know, your memory isn't as sharp as it used to be, right? Because I've always said that I joined this outfit in '98. Obviously, according to what Norma said, I didn't join till either '99 or 2000. So we'll use 2000 as the mark. And one Saturday, I'm looking through and I see the meetings for the town of Van Buren, the meeting for the town of Lysander, and the village, but no Board of Education. Well, as a retired teacher of 35 years, there's something wrong with this picture, no Board of Education. So I called Norma up. I live up on Maple Road. She's 5 doors. I could have yelled down there, but I called her instead. And I said, Norma, there's no Board of Education. She says, well, we don't have a videographer. So I said, I'll do it. And that in a way was great, and on the other hand it was a mistake, because I went from 4 hours a month, 2 board meetings at 2 hours each, to about 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
And
We practically made him a staff member
Yeah.
at the
Yes.
library. And he'd always come in the morning, bring those that needed their coffee,
That's right. And part of that deal was just to make nice with the library because the
We needed
library
them.
treated us well.
Yes.
You know, beyond, even though they did charge us a nominal fee, but they treated us beyond that nominal fee. We could have paid them 3, 4, 5 times, and they still would have treated us nicely, and we would have treated them equally as well. Jennifer, and I always forget Jennifer's name on Saturday. Yeah. And she wasn't supposed to get there to like 9 o'clock or 8:45 on Saturday. Well, Bob Stockdale and I needed to be there earlier to change the tapes, the VHF tapes. So Jennifer, out of the kindness of her heart, would come at 8:25, 8:30 to let Bob Stockdale and I in. It did cost Bob Stockdale and I some coffee money, and that's how that whole thing about coffee and whatever you want to drink. I'm going for coffee. Give me the list, and we'll go get it. And that ended up like every day. And I cannot say enough about the library. It was really fantastic, and I guess I kind of make the relationship to being in the faculty room, and in the elementary school, as you know, there's more women than men. Well, in the library, there's hardly any men. Bob came along, right? And I think he was the first man, and the one custodian, I forgot his name.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So it was a warm atmosphere. It was really enjoyable. One day after I joined, we got together, Norma and Don and Bobby Stockdale, and we decided, how can we get more people to watch this? And a couple of ideas were floated. One, let's put more kids on, like school concerts, athletics. How about art shows that were being held in the library? How about the library programs? How about Beecham, those programs? How about remembering Beeville? You know, anything to do with the community. I remember there was something going on a Saturday, and we got on a horse and buggy, didn't we? I forgot what they were promoting Christmas or whatever, shopping, and we went around from shop to shop on this horse and buggy, Norma and I. And how about garden shows? You know, that's Norma's forte.
Flowers, love flowers.
Peony Fest.
Yeah, so we did a number of private garden type flowers. We did the Peony Fest, and we cannot forget, we need to mention Doris Cross right off the bat, because the Peony lady, you know, we would always interview her. One time, I don't think we had an interview a couple years ago, and she did the whole thing. Leonard has also done the last couple of them. So somebody said, how come other communities haven't started their own public access? And Norma said, rightfully so, it takes a lot of people. On this page, these 3 pages here, I have about 20 people that have, and I'm going to use the full-time people that were dedicated to PAC-B. And they were probably also putting in 20 to 30 hours of work videotaping. And one being Ray Rice. How many people know Ray Rice? Everybody knows Ray Rice. And you know, Ray Rice's wife is in the community band, still is. And I think she got Ray to, and along with Phil Sterling, to videotape every community band concert. Ray's a retired vocational teacher out of Syracuse, and he just loves automobiles. He just loves mechanics. He loves wrenches, screwdrivers, hammers, you know, whatever, saws, you know, whatever it is. So he had a buddy, Donnie Schmidt, that would help him out periodically. They would go around to all these car shows and videotape maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 car shows during the summer. And John O'Neill joined like in 2001. And did you grab him, or did he just come by?
No, I guess we grabbed him because he had after school basketball for a rental school, and he just happened to come by the house, and so Don grabbed him and gave him a camera.
Yeah. and John, being a phys ed teacher,
yeah.
Like the athletic part of it, so he helped me videotape all the athletic events that we could do in the fall, and the winter, and the spring. And it's funny, you always need a play-by-play person with the athletic events. And we didn't have anybody. Many times we would just go to the event and ask a parent, ask a kid, ask anybody, would you do the play-by-play? In here, I have a list of about 200 people that maybe did only one. Or somebody like Mayor Clark did maybe over a period of 5 years did 20 of them. The assistant superintendent, Joe Barbary.
Barbary?
No, Barbary.
Barbary.
Joe the Barber. Barbary. He was a wrestling champion, so he did a couple wrestling matches as the high school principal. So there were some luminaries that did it. Steve, whoever it is, Steve's last name, that's the engineer for the village, his son was playing lacrosse, and he did a whole bunch of things for the lacrosse. So you would just get people to do it. One night, this was probably 2001, get a phone call from this guy named Gary Reisman. Gary Reisman worked for the Morris Pumps at the time before they moved to Seneca Falls, and he says, I don't see any girls basketball. Well, the good thing was that he was looking at the station. Yeah, he was looking. He was watching. No girls basketball. I said, it's a funny thing, Gary, that you're calling, because tomorrow night I am going to do a girls basketball and I don't have any play-by-play. Will you do it? He says, yes. Wow, okay. So the next night, as the videographer, as Bob will tell you, and as you saw, Bob's here before anybody else to set up. So I get to the gym, set up on the top row, waiting for Gary, because Gary would always come all the way from Seneca Falls. He would not go home. He'd come right from work, Seneca Falls, from Morris Pumps after they moved over there. And this kid stood him about three seats down, and he says, how can I do that? How can you do what? Do the play-by-play. So here's the microphone, start talking. It's that simple. It's that simple. Well, this kid turns out to be Mike Toper. Mike Toper's brother played basketball with Gary's son. So when Gary comes, Mike Toper knows Gary. So they were a natural together. Not that they always did it together. In fact, what happened was Gary would do some, and then Mike would do some on his own and so on. But Mike was serious, because a couple times he'd come with a suit and coat and tie on. And I said, you know, I got my sweatshirt on, right? Or whatever, and he's got a suit and tie on. I said, what are you doing? Oh, we got to interview the coach. Fine, we'll go interview the coach. Well, Mike Toper today works for Spectrum Sports in Raleigh, North Carolina. Now, I don't know if you know about Raleigh. That's North Carolina State. Just up the road is Durham. That's Duke. And just up the road is Chapel Hill. And that's North Carolina. Well, probably Mike's the only guy there with an orange shirt on. The only SU fan in the whole state of North Carolina. So there is one person that, and he was an 8th grader. I forgot to mention that. He was an 8th grader, and he did an 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. Went off to school, and I'm not sure where he went to college, but he got a degree in communications, and he's now making a living. I would, you know, if somebody said, what are the achievements of PAC-B, that is an achievement. At the same time, maybe about 4 or 5 years later, maybe in odd 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there, John O'Neill, some girl comes up, Alicia D'Addario. I think that's her name, Alicia D'Addario. And she says she wants to do play-by-play. Well, she did it for a couple, 3 years. She is the weekend sports person at the Utica television station, and also the weekday news person. You know, one of the. So there's another person that went through PAC-B or used PAC-B to help them with their career. There's been other kids, but we don't know if anybody else has succeeded as a profession. But those two have. So we're proud of those two. So that was one of the accomplishments we did. Joe Semitile. How many people know Joe Semitile? You know, another famous name. Well, Joe and I taught school. Out of my 35 years, Joe and I probably were in the same building or partners, and elementary school. And Joe kind of liked art. And when he retired, he went to pottery school up at OCC. So the art shows. Norma and I started out doing the art shows, and we said, how about Joe? Let's call Joe up and see if he wants to be the interviewer. And sure enough, Joe just loved that. You know, that was right up his alley. He liked the content of the artwork, and he liked interviewing people. He was a people person, so he enjoyed that. Bob Stockdale, Norma mentioned Bob Stockdale. Bob Stockdale was one of the 3 owners of WSEN Radio. I don't know if you all knew that. WSEN Radio started in 1958. Somewhere about 65 or whatever, they decided the 3 being, the other one being Jim Lowry and the other one being Don Menapace. I always got to be careful how I say Menapace. And they sold it, and Bob Stockdale went and worked for the Cancer Society. Well, one day, Bob goes to work, and the head guy at the Cancer Society says, listen, we got this computer down the hallway, you need to go down there and figure it out. Well, you know, it wasn't a laptop, it wasn't a PC, it was a floor-to-ceiling computer. And that's what he had to do for the next couple of weeks, figure out how to do that. Now, to figure that out, you're talking about a sophisticated man as far as electronics go. I mean, he was naturally intelligent, but now this was right up his alley, seeing that he was one of the head honchos at WSEN Radio. So he was basically the scheduler for us. Mm-hmm. He was the head electronics guy, how to wire up all the DVD, or not at that time, but the VCRs. He was the program scheduler, he made the program. And funny thing, he made me assistant to all those things. Okay, I'll be your assistant. Why not? Another day in the library. It was great to be in the library. Why not? And one of his other partners, Jim Lowry, and I knew Jim Lowry through mutual friends, he calls up and he says, I got a good idea. What's the idea? Let's put on a program called B, capital B-E-E. Be a Good Sport. And part of that program was to interview coaches, athletes, and athletic directors, anything to do with it. And we probably did about 20, 25 programs. The 3rd member of this Menapace guy, just died a week and a half ago. He and Bob Stockdale evidently went to Nottingham because they're either the same age, both born in 1926. So they knew each other in high school. They both loved music. They probably both liked the whole idea about communication and radio. And they called up, I don't know how Jim Lowry got involved with it, but he was from Ohio, Youngstown, Ohio, and they brought him in as the sports person. And when we interviewed these people, these athletes and coaches, well, they, like Pete Ferrini, he remembered Jim Lowry as doing the play-by-play for Baldwinsville football, Baldwinsville basketball, Baldwinsville lacrosse. At the time, Jim Lowry was working for the radio station as the sports director up in Oswego. Not only did he do be a good sport, but he would also do some play-by-play. The other thing Bob Stockdale, and he took pride in doing it, was the Memorial Day Parade. And he had the whole script. You know, we still have the notebook. It has about 20 pages of what to say, when, where, how, and what you do. And talking about veterans, Norma here developed let's interview a whole bunch of veterans. And we did, what, about 20, 25 of them? Mm-hmm. And 2 of the famous ones, Larry Perry. I don't know, Larry Perry just died like 3 months ago. Now, we interviewed him like, what, 12, 15 years ago?
Yeah.
And he was at Pearl Harbor the day it was bombed. Mm-hmm. And the guy starts crying. And I'm saying, holy cow, now what do I do? Do I leave the camera, do you leave the camera running and embarrass him? Or is that part of the story? Well, I did half and half. I stopped the camera and then I turned it back on. So, because you had to think fast, Yeah, we don't want to embarrass the gentleman, but yet at the same time, that was part of the story. The other one was Bill Hook. And where was Bill? Bill Hook was Korea?
Yeah, he was Korean War.
And somebody just mentioned Jeannie, somebody here.
Jeannie,
Yeah, we did her too, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
She was naval,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, she liked the uniform.
That's right.
That's right. So those were a whole bunch of people that we ran into and did. Going back to the play-by-play thing, Gary Reisman started play-by-play 2001, and he was sad that I retired, because this was something Gary enjoyed doing. He enjoyed coming from work. You know, some guys like going golfing. Some guys like going drinking. Some guys do whatever. Gary loved coming and doing the sports. So he was kind of sad, and he was good at it. In the meantime, I had nobody for lacrosse one time. This was about 4 or 5 years ago. So I asked the coach, see if you can find somebody, and they come up with Brian Soccer. I don't know if you know that name, Brian Soccer. Brian Soccer graduated from Baker way back with my kids somewhere in '88 or '89, and he's a real Baldwinsville guy, and his kids play sports, and he was more than willing to do it, and he brings along his buddy Mike Stoliker. And the point with all that is that we didn't have to recruit, you know, we didn't put out a big notebook and say, we need videographers. People just kind of fell into doing it. They wanted to do it. They wanted to help out. Kenny Brown, who was the wrestling coach, and, you know, oh, I want to say this. Most people could just do a basketball game. You've seen enough basketball games. I could ask my wife. She could do the play-by-play on basketball, right, Marianne? Or a football game or whatever. Well, wrestling, you need to know what's going on there. So Kenny Brown was the coach, and when he gave up his reins, I asked Kenny if he would do the play-by-play, and he's been doing the play-by-play for wrestling, and my understanding is that he's going to continue it with Ernie Ham.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, Ernie Ham's going to do the wrestling. I think he was asked by the who's the director of Lysander there, Tony Birkinshaw.
Tony.
Yeah, Tony. I think because Tony's wants that. He's the coach, and he wants the video on it. That's what he really wants. And he knows Ernie, so Ernie says he'll do it, and Kenny Brown said he would do the play-by-play. Teresa Gross, the producer of Remembering Beeville. When did you start that?
I don't remember.
Yeah, that's well, 2010.
Much to remember.
2003.
This is her 15th season.
15th season. Producer.
And I haven't aged a bit.
That's right. You look exactly what you looked like. How many years ago did I meet you? 55 years ago? That's right. Looks the same. Looks the same. Remembering Beeville. And if she sees something in town that she thinks we should tape, she calls you up. Like she had a garden, some lady across the street had a great garden. Calls us up, says we should go down, come across the street there on Virginia Street, and sure enough, we did it, and it was a pretty good.
nice?
Yeah, it was very
She
good.
hasn't done a thing with that garden since.
Well,
No, I'm serious. I don't know why.
yeah. Then there's Bonnie Kisselstein. Lysander Historian. Beecham, right? How many
Library.
How many Beecham programs?
Oh, I don't, but there's a lot of people who've done Beecham, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I always associate you with Beecham. But what Bonnie and I have been doing lately, we're not doing it anymore, but what we were doing, we were taking all these old history programs and putting them on DVD, so the library will have a file of a bunch of programs. You want to tell us just quickly about that?
We have, they're all in the local history room, they're not all cataloged yet, but they are all, I mean, they gotta do the nitty gritty to get them in the catalog. They're all there, and anybody can view them. We get an idea and we go for it.
Another person that has helped us out, in fact, she did the Peony Fest last year, is Pat Leonard, and her buddy Rodney Root. And Pat Leonard started way back with Bob Kirk.
Yes.
Way back, way back in 2005 or 6 with Bob Kirk. She was the interviewer with Bob Kirk. And we have to make a special announcement about Bob Kirk. I kind of figured, one time I think I figured out he did like 130.
167.
Yeah, something like that. I said, let's see if I could catch up with him. Well, I got the 90 and I said, okay, Bob Kirk wins. 167 in 1 year. Well, you know, that's.
He had his camera in the back seat of his car.
Yes.
And he would take me out. We'll do one thing. And Phil, Norma, let's go here. Let's go there. And I'd be gone all Saturday, and we'd be We'd be hitting everything. He just loved photography. And yes, he was a big part of PAC-B.
And he was a Battle of the Bulge guy, and I thought he was, but you could tell me if I'm right or wrong, a photographer for the Army during the war.
Yeah, I think I still have that picture someplace. I don't know. That he was in the Battle of the Bulge, and it shows his picture, and his mother thought, it was in like Time magazine or something. And his mother thought it looked just like him. So that's
But it wasn't he, though.
I don't know.
But it looked like
You never,
him, right?
yeah, it looked like him.
So Bob Curtin did things for St. Mary's like Bob Edgett does for his church.
Exactly right.
Took a lot of pictures and
Exactly.
programs and things.
Exactly. So we have to make a special announcement for Bob Kirk. And, you know, a lot of people don't want to retire, and the reason why you don't want to retire because you do want to have something to do. It takes a special reason to retire. Well, Bob Kirk did not want to retire, and consequently he was out videotaping, and he went home and sat in his chair and died. So it's almost like he died on the job, you know.
But he also had a youngster who followed him around, and Bob taught him how to use the camera, and he would help Bob and everything. And that was a nice association for about 2 years. Of course, the kid grew up and went away.
Right. This is really a job for retirees because you have the time to do it. We have at one time when we were at the high water mark, I would say we had 8, 9, 10 videographers, and everybody was retired. We now have only 5 or 6. There's the head videographer right there, Bobby Edgett, who joined as far as videographer, back in 2004, 2005?
Correct.
Somewhere in there. And he's still on the job, still going strong. And if you were in trouble, like a lot of times I get myself into trouble computer-wise or electronically. Bobby, what you doing? What do you need, Joe? I'll be right down, Joe. And this kind of guy Bobby Edgett is. Unless he was out with Juanita out in the country somewhere and he couldn't make it, but if he could make it, he would be there. And my best story about Bob Stockdale and Bob Edgett, when we moved from the library, which was 2010, Meg?
Roughly,
Yeah.
About that.
So every day I'd go down there and check in on those guys down at what we call M Street, 8 Mechanic Street, M Street. And the two of them are very intelligent to start with and very sophisticated when it comes to electronics. And I'd go down there and they solve problems by just, they go down this aisle, we got to make this turn, go down this aisle, go down that, and they'd solve the problem. Well, about the 5th or 6th day I went down there and they got the books out. Saying, holy cow, we are in trouble. They are reading books to figure out what they have to do next. And they figured it out, and we work like a spinning top.
Yes.
But those between Bobby Edgett and Bobby Stockdale, they kept the place going. Kept the place going electronically.
And that when we were put our last video together, I was just mind-boggling the way. I mean, I know that Bob Edgett knows, as he said, he's the guru, and you had learned from him, because when we slotted in the pictures, it was like, oh my God, this is really complicated. It's not just taking a camera and videotaping. We figured it was an hour a minute.
Right. And everything I knew about VHS tape, just the old videotape, I learned from Bobby Stockdale. Everything I know about digital editing, I learned from Bobby Edgett. And Bonnie brings up a good point, going back to Bonnie. Not only we did all the historical programs, but we did some programs that Bonnie would produce and write up, and she and I would go out on the road. In fact, Harlow and Bonnie, what was that program we did?
National Register.
Yes. And then Bonnie and I, the last program we did was Then and Now Lock 24. Yeah. And so there was a lot of good communication and good things. The other thing Bonnie did with Jack Paulding way back, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, the Colonial Days?
37 years.
37 years ago, 4th Day Colonial Days. And with 4th Day Colonial Days, all the 4th graders in the district go down to the bus garage, and each bay has a certain colonial setup that they go through. And we videotaped that a couple times, like on the 30th anniversary or so on.
More than that.
So going back to that point, why don't other people have a public access? Because it takes in this case it took 25 of us, 20 to 25, and you can see Teresa's, you know, I consider Teresa a PAC-B member because she's a great producer. She produces programs for us. Bonnie is a PAC-B member. She produces programs for us. We all remember Milton Bertle, right? We all remember Sid Caesar. You know what those people found out after about 2 years of live TV? Wow, we're running out of material. And that's the same thing with what we were doing. We're running out of material. You got to keep the material up. And once you keep the material up, then you need the people to produce that material. And then you need the videographer to do it. And then you need the editor to do it. And so where are we today? Well, today, Bobby Edgett, Ray Rice, Jim Hoteling, who just does Lysander board meetings. Like I said, Ernie Ham, Brad was the father. Ernie Ham came along, he's joining us. And then we've got a couple kids. One kid, and he's not a kid anymore, I met him as a kid, and Matt Taylor. One day I was doing the Board of Education, and Matt Taylor stands up in front of the whole Board of Education to explain what his homeroom was going to do about beautifying the new addition to Baker. Now the new addition to Baker, this is back in 2003 or 4. And I'm saying, here's an 18-year-old kid standing up in front of all these, you know, sophisticated Board of Education members and the superintendent and on camera. And then he wanted to go around and explain to his classmates, homeroom to homeroom, on why they should recycle. So he calls me up. So he and I went from classroom to classroom. Matt Taylor is another electronic whiz. He works for, who's the electronics store?
Best Buy.
Best Buy, works for Best Buy. And he videotapes, because in 2008, I couldn't do the Board of Education anymore, so he's been doing the Board of Education for the last 10 years. Now to do the Board of Education, that's two meetings a month, and the last one was 3 hours.
I was gonna say, but yeah.
3 hours and 10 minutes. Now, once in a while he couldn't make it, so he'd either call Bob or I up. So I went, and I'm looking at the clock, and it's at the 3 hour mark, or 2.5 hour mark, and now it's 2:45, so I packed up. Assistant superintendent says, Jamie says, where you going? Did you run out of tape? I said, no, we don't use tape anymore. We're good for 16 hours. But I'm not. I'm going home. Yeah, nobody should have a 4 hour Board of Education meeting. There's something not right here, or a 3 hour.
You can't follow it.
Huh?
You really can't
That's
follow
right.
it.
So Matt Taylor has been doing it for 10 years. And where are we as far as manpower goes? Well, we have like 5, 6 videographers, but Matt Taylor only does the Board of Education. Jim Hoteling, who's on the Board of Directors, just does Lysander. Ray Rice does his thing, but Ray Rice, you know, he's going to be going to Texas or California or wherever he
Texas.
goes. Yeah, wherever he goes in the winter. And so we got 2 kids, Andrew Millard, Dr. Roger Millard's grandson.
Oh.
Grandson. So he was an 8th grader last year. He volunteered. He wanted to do this. So we set him up to do the village board meeting. And he's continuing to do it. And then there's Josh Pandozzi.
Yes,
And he's a junior.
yes.
And he does the Van Buren board meeting. Now, Andrew has a little longer time to work at the village because they might go 45 minutes or an hour. Once in a while, an hour and 15 minutes. But Van Buren, they set records. 7.5 minutes, 8 minutes, 25 seconds. Now I noticed last one, they went like 25 minutes,
Right.
30 minutes.
Double length.
Yeah. So what do we need? We need videographers. You know, we've got 2 kids, and they are kids, so they're not going to be around. But Bob was just saying to me that Andrew's going to do a school concert. We have Ernie Ham, we have Ray Rice, and so on. A couple of the people that all have worked for us and also have retired, and I got to make mention, is Jerry Elliot. You probably all know Jerry Elliot. And he travels the world with his wife. But Jerry always found time to come back in the month of November, December, and the month of May and June to do school concerts. He was also doing the village board meetings for a while back, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And he's another retired school teacher from Liverpool. Colin was Colin Call, who I didn't mention, is a retired guidance counselor, and he did a whole bunch of things, including remembering Beeville. Now, how did Colin get part of PAC-B? Well, Norma and I are going into the football stadium to videotape the cancer setup where they walk the track.
Relay for life.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Relay for life. And Colin's following us, and he says to Norma, "Where you guys going?" "We're going to go videotape." "Hey, I want to do that." Boy. And he had his own equipment. It's
Yes, he
amazing.
had nice
Colin
equipment.
had his own equipment at home. He did his own thing. Bobby Edgett had his own equipment, did it at home. Ray Rice had his own equipment, handed in the tape. And Colin was just a great guy. And
He loved what he was doing.
yes,
He really
yes,
did.
thank you for saying that. Yes, yes. And so they're, like I said, we had these 20, 25 people, whether they were play-by-play people or the editors, videographers, that just were committed to PAC-B. Now, we got 5 people, 2 are kids, and 2 just do a certain thing. So that only leaves Bobby Edgett to do all the library programs, all the art programs, all the garden programs, and whatever else you do. So
Joe, do you have the high school kids being groomed for this thing too?
no, not really. Andy's a high school kid, and so is Josh. But you know,
They don't have like a
no,
TV studio of their own?
No, they don't.
No,
they don't.
we tried, well, actually, we chose not to be up at the high school because the doors would close and then we couldn't
Oh,
go in
yeah.
and work at our studio or anything like that. So we would love to have them send down the kids from high school, but they're not into that thing. There is, I think in junior high school, there's a 10-week program. I forgot who teaches that, but it's all about technology and videography and stuff like that. But you lose them after they go into
Well,
high
those are the
school.
people that you could tap for this kind of thing.
Yeah, but see,
If they leave and go to college.
Yeah,
no, well,
well,
yeah, but it's to some degree you're correct if it would be a funnel every year. But
Yeah.
see, the school would have to take responsibility for that.
Right,
Well,
right.
you know. So
yeah.
they would have to get a supervisor, meaning a classroom teacher. Well, that's like everything else. Once you've taught all day, do you want to do more, dealing with more kids? So it just doesn't work out that way. You know, Cortland High School did that.
Yes.
Exactly what you said. Cortland did that. And if you looked at Time Warner on, you know, they had a sports station on Time Warner, and you would see the Cortland kids doing the play-by-play, and they would man the cameras
Yeah,
and all that.
yeah.
But the adult teacher from Cortland took responsibility
Yeah.
for them, so we didn't have to worry about that. But that would be another thing.
But you found some of these kids in the past, you gave some examples, so.
Yeah, right. Well,
So it's
because
possible to be able to pick up,
yeah, it is. But they
What
weren't
kids?
videographers other than Andrew and Josh, and they volunteered. But the other people were play-by-play people, which is a different thing.
right, okay, right.
You know, because I'm there with the camera, or John O'Neill's there with the camera. You know, there's supervision there. And also, that caused us some problem, because if you were doing play-by-play, and especially if you're a girl, you know, like Alicia, and there were other girls too. Okay, you need to call your mother right now. Game's over with, you're calling your mother, and I'm walking you out to the car. You know, so there's all those kinds of problems that once you get in dealing with kids, you know, you gotta safeguard the kid, and you gotta safeguard yourself. So it's not, what you think would be easy and simple and be a natural isn't necessarily that simple or natural.
Yeah, so when this one youngster was Dave, and he did a lot of our analog tapes and put them on the computer, but I had to go down and sit with him just to make sure that there was somebody. So, but he was a great help and everything, but still I had to take time and go down and sit there and make sure everything turned out okay.
See, the radio station, as you know, there's a radio station up at the high school, and Jenner was one of the people, and he's since retired.
Yeah.
And there was somebody else. Well, now there's Paul Miser, and I think he just retired. Well, I think they were having trouble with the radio station, because every once in a while I'd see them do the play-by-play for a basketball. But you'd think that they would be every game.
Yeah.
So not a once-in-a-while deal. So that says to me, if there's only there once in a while, well, do kids really want to do it? You know, kids are so much into the video games themselves
Yeah.
that I'm not sure they want to do it.
Yeah,
Now,
there's-
so when you do get kids, and one of the carrots for getting kids is PIG hours, participation in government, and this qualifies for it. You know, Andrew Millard's going to have enough PIG hours for his whole class. You know, all 400 of them, because he just keeps it up. He just keeps going. So accomplishments, that's what was on this thing. The accomplishment, one of the things, is that a couple kids have used us to get professional jobs. That's one. The other thing is we have transparency at meetings. You know, there's a difference at a board meeting, whether it's the Board of Ed or Lysander or the village or Van Buren, when a camera's there.
Yeah.
There's a difference. You know, everybody minds their P's and Q's. That's a good thing. That's transparency. We're responsible for that. One of the must-see TV programs is Lysander.
Oh, yeah.
So there it is. It's all out there. You know, you can't deny you said it or didn't say it. It's right there. We're there. We're on the scene. So that's a good accomplishment. And as it comes into my mind, most of the programs that we've done in the last, 4 years, 5 years, you can see online at PACBTV.org. Now, somebody said to us, well, how many people watch this thing? We have no idea. Well, I can tell you from being online, there's some Lysander board meetings that get up there about 110, 115 people watching it. And then there's Van Buren, that 8.5 minute meeting, maybe one. or the village, you know, the village.
That one is me checking it.
Yes.
And one,
Lysander has their individuals are there every week.
That's right.
Everyone.
That's right. What must see TV.
well, and as a courtesy to all the governmental meetings, Don went around and asked permission to put the camera in. And so the town of Van Buren voted it down because they said, first of all, it was going to be very political and everybody was going to try to be a star on it. And so they voted PAC-B down. Well, they knew, they didn't realize that they couldn't do that. So that was what happened, and so we got the cameras in there finally.
That's why there's 8-minute meetings?
Yeah.
They were a little longer than that. That's a long time ago.
One other achievement, just I got a number here. I think we've done something like 5,000 videos in this 22-year spans. 5,000 videos. Now, I think something like 1,900 of them are still being shown. Now you say, what's the discrepancy? They're still in our library. What's the discrepancy between 5,000 and 1,900? Well, you know, we don't play Van Buren board meetings from 2006 or Lysander. So there's all those meetings that are not in our library anymore. The athletic programs, the sport programs, you know, unless you want to put in classic football game or something. So there's a whole bunch of those that aren't in the library anymore. And when it comes to numbers, we didn't keep numbers, so this is a guesstimate. You know, I'm going through the videographers. How many videos you do a year, Bob?
I don't know.
Okay, well, I figure, that's right, he doesn't know, so I figured he does at least 50 or 55.
Yeah, probably.
So if he's been doing it for 20 years, that's a heck of a lot of video. Bob Kirk, you know, what'd you tell me, 170?
167.
Yeah, so, John O'Neill, he's probably good for about 500, because he's been around for 15 years. Jerry Elliott may be good for 300. Colin, probably good for 400 in his time period.
How about yourself?
I don't know, I can't. But yeah, a lot of them. So 5,000 videos, and they're still around, you know, and Bonnie's doing a good job of trying to.
They said they're not cataloged, but they are in the local history room. We do have a computer in there where you can watch them.
Right. So if you know anybody that wants to be a videographer, have them call Bob Edgett. If you know anybody that wants to be a editor, have them call Bob Edgett.
I'm not volunteering.
I'm sorry, what, Joan?
I'm not volunteering.
Okay.
It's kind of a funny story. I think you mentioned a short time ago, you know, if you go to a meeting or something and you know you're going to be on TV, you have to kind of behave, and, you know, the proof is going to be around that you were there. A few months ago, I was flipping the TV channels around and I happened upon PAC-B. And there was a program, and it was Remembering Baldwinsville. And so I said, oh, I'll watch that for a while. And I watched it, and I thought, well, I don't remember seeing this one. And after a while, someone asked a question, I think, and I thought, it sounds like me. So the program went on, and it ended, and at the end of the program, didn't I get up and go and thank the speaker for being here? And so Teresa must not have been able to be here, and I must have been the docent that day. And it's like, yeah, I was there.
I bet you it was Maury Gay.
Pardon me?
I bet it was a Maury Gay one. I couldn't make it that day.
The one day you couldn't make it. That must have been the one.
Now, Sue McManus she's hiding behind the bottles over there, but Sue and Norma and I have done a few programs here with Sue also.
Yeah.
Yes.
And one was the book that she wrote, and that was a good program, and then just sometimes the exhibits that have been hanging up.
And we did some of Bob Bitz's books. We interviewed him on his authorship.
So if any of you retired people want to join, there's the man to see. Thank
Anybody
you.
else has questions? Comments?
What?
Any questions or comments?
I have a question about whether I could get a copy of a tape or whatever you're doing now from Mechanic Street, now that you're gone. Would be somebody to call to get a copy?
Yeah, call Bob.
Yeah. Okay. Call Bob. When he retires.
Yeah.
And I have an unlisted number.
I only say call Bob because Bob is the constant. He's the reliable person. The other people that I've mentioned here, they don't have any part to that.
Yeah.
Instead of calling, what you want to do is really email our website and order if you want to order something.
There's a phone number too.
Well, I wouldn't call
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
No. Go to email PACBTV.org.
The phone number should now tell people to go on to online.
Anyone else? Then under new business, I'm going to call Ed McManus up for a brief moment, please. I'm sure everyone knows Ed McMahon. He's been our treasurer for a long time.
And he gets to make his annual award, the Bertle E. Wells Jr. Memorial Preservation Award. And we've been doing this, unfortunately, I don't know that we've kept track of all of the different awards over the years, but it isn't a given that we award it every year. And there have been years where we haven't had an honoree that we chose to honor. But this year, we do. And this particular person, well, let me read this. In recognition of his commitment to the preservation of the historic fabric and traditions of Baldwinsville is demonstrated by giving tirelessly and generously of his time and talent as a videographer and editor documenting Baldwinsville of yesterday and today, sharing it now and preserving it for the future. Joe Loffredo.
Let me get up. Let me get up. Thank you. Now, they threw a retirement party for me, and some of you were there. And, you know, we all have favorite 4-letter words that we love. Mine is T-E-A-M. And the reason it's T-E-A-M, because there's no I in T. And, you know, here's the proof of team. Well, I get the award, but there's so many people that were responsible for what we could do and to do this. So you gotta thank all these people. But I'll thank you. Thank you.
And now, would someone like to adjourn the meeting so we can go for refreshments?
So move.
Second.
I don't think we need even a second on that.
Yeah, no, we-
Thank you